Okay, we're going to talk about the Bible text on the rapture. A lot of people today are denying that there's a rapture. They're saying that the Christians are going to go through the tribulation or that the tribulation has already occurred. There's a tendency to want to put off the miraculous, to relegate it to the past or to something that is going to happen far distant in the future. The idea of a possible imminent, immediate rapture of the church is just too miraculous for a lot of people. So there's some scriptural argument. I read a book by Rosenthal or Rosen something several years ago on pre-wrath rapture. I read it through twice. And when I read it, I actually decided I would just dismiss my beliefs and adopt what he believed as a mind experiment. And so I read it with a desire to believe what he said. That's how I thought I could get the most out of it. And I read it all the way through, and then I went back and I read it through again. I took careful notes. And if there was anything that would convince me of the falsehood of the pre-wrath rapture, it'd be that book. It was such a failure, such a total failure biblically. He had to jump around from one false Bible to another to reinterpret the text to try to make it say what it actually did not say. So there's a passage in Matthew 24 that is very famous for teaching that there's no rapture. And so that's what we're going to look at here. And it'll take a little while, but we're going to go verse by verse in blocks through it so you can understand it. Now, Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came and showed him the buildings of the temple and said unto him, See all these things, verily I say unto you, there shall not be left one stone standing upon another that shall not be thrown down. That happened in 70 AD. And then he said, and he sat upon the Mount of Olives. The disciples came unto him. So this is the question they ask him later in reference to that statement. Tell us, when shall these things be? Question 1. And what shall be the sign of thy coming? Question 2. And what will be the sign of the end of the world? Question 3. So those are 3 specific questions that he answered, to which Jesus will give 3 specific answers in the rest of the chapter. Okay, the first is, what is the sign? Now, what he does, he cautions them, he starts off with non-signs. In other words, if you're looking for signs of the rapture or the second coming, don't be fooled by non-signs. There's a tendency for us to interpret, and I see it every day, see it right now, all real popular right now, to take non-signs and interpret them as signs. Have you noticed that every time there's an earthquake or a tornado or a big tragedy or a war, there's a whole bunch of Christians that start screaming, this is the end of the world, this is a sign of the end of the world? Look what he says. Jesus answered and said to them, Take heed that no man deceive you. There are people who will deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I'm Christ, and shall deceive many. Ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. That's one of the non-signs. See that ye be not troubled by wars and rumors of wars. For all these things must come to pass, process, ongoing, developing, but the end is not yet. That's not a sign of the second coming. The Iraq war, Afghanistan war, the Israeli war right now, none of those are signs of the second coming. People will deceive you on that. For nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. There shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. But they're not the beginning of the tribulation. They're just the beginning of sorrows for the Jews, in particular, to whom he's speaking at this time. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted. So following those things is you're delivered up to be afflicted. They shall kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. He's speaking of an expanse of history and of these things occurring in the future. And don't, he said, be fooled in thinking this is the end. There shall be many offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. You see the expansive future he's talking about. And many false prophets shall rise. Notice that many, many, many. In other words, it's over a long period of time. And shall deceive many. There's so many churches been started by false prophets who came and said this is going to be the end I can think of several Pentecostal versions right now. Seventh-day Adventists were preaching the end back in the 1840s. And when it did not come, they reinterpreted, and they're still good people. I like the Seventh-day Adventists and good music and so forth, but they just got, Ellen White just got it wrong. She should have stayed home and cooked biscuits. Verse 6, and you shall hear wars, rumors of wars, be not troubled, for these things must come to pass, the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilence, plural, and earthquakes, plural, in divers places, plural, and all these are the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Now, the fact they're hated for all nations indicates the broad panorama of events. And then shall many be offended, shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. That's Jews hating Jews, and by implication also Christians hating Christians. And many false prophets shall rise, and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. That waxing is a process, an ongoing, wearing process of waxing cold. But he that shall endure unto the end shall be saved. So he that holds out against all of this degeneration that takes place all the way to the end will be saved. Now, that's not born again. That's saved from the events that are going to occur. Now, when is it going to occur? He starts on the second phase. Actually, this is the first phase. He just gave you a bunch of non-signs. So now he's going to go. Now, by the way, notice how I diagrammed this. This is the way you study the Bible. I got the question, and then I got the non-signs, which it was, and then the when, the sign. In Judea, when you see this happen, that's particularly in Judea, a caution, back to the chronology, after the tribulation. Note, all these things, break your text down like it was a legal document and put headings on it so you can read it, so you can see it and get the flow of things. That's the first step in studying the Word of God. Now, here's the question. So now he goes to the subject of when. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. So the disciples will know, when will this happen? He said, when the gospel of the kingdom is preached to the whole world for a witness unto all nations. That should have told them that it was a long way out coming, because they by far had not preached the gospel to the whole world. There were people in the Americas who'd never heard. There were people in Alaska and the northern Arctic Circle who'd never heard when he said that. There are people deep in Africa and Amazon who'd never heard. Gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world. Okay? By the way, that's pretty much happened. That's what we've given our life to doing. And here's a sign. When ye therefore shall see, that's what they will know. What can we see and know this is going to be it? See the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place. And then he adds, whosoever readeth, let him understand. In other words, you have to read the book of Daniel to know what the abomination of desolation is. And we won't go into that here. But when you see that take place, that will actually be the erection of the Antichrist image in the Jewish temple and the shedding of human blood on the altar in the temple in Jerusalem. That's what he's talking about. Then let them which be in Judea, these are talking about Jews now, flee into the mountains. Let them which be on the housetop not come down to take anything out of the house, neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. Notice the nature of this. This is not some sudden event, a bolt of lightning coming out of the sky. What he's talking about now is a protracted period of time, a protracted sign. They wanted a sign. This is a protracted sign. Woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. But pray that your flight, it's interesting, be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath. So they're going to fly out of Israel. They're going to try to escape into the mountains. For then shall be great tribulation. There is a great tribulation, the great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. It's going to be worse than all the wars. It's going to be worse than all the earthquakes, all the volcanoes, all the famines, all the diseases sweeping over the earth. It's going to be worse than all of that put together. And except those days should be shortened, the days of the tribulation, so they're a fixed time frame, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, and that's Israel, he's talking to those in Judea, those days shall be shortened. So it is a prescribed time period, and he's going to cut off a few days from what he prescribed. And the book of Daniel gives us the days, the time frame, 1260 days. But if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is Christ. Now, in other words, this is a caution. This is not part of the chronology. What he's done now, he's told you the chronology down to the end of the tribulation. And then he goes with a caution. If any man shall say unto you, Lo, here's Christ, there, believe it not. For there shall rise false Christs, false prophets, shall show great signs and wonders, healings, tongues, miracles, insomuch as if it were possible they should deceive the very elect. Many elect have already been deceived by the Pentecostal faith fake miracles. I've seen miracles. I've participated in miracles. I've had miracles happen to me. I know a miracle when I see one, and I know a fake when I see it on TV and in some of these big churches. Therefore, if any shall say to you, Behold, he's in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he's in the secret chamber, believe it not. Now, here's the rapture. For as the lightning cometh out of the east and shineth unto the west, so shall the coming of Son of Man be. Now, this caution he gave them, 23 through 26, was to them at that time in history, right there when they're asking the question. So he said, don't believe it when all these false Christs and false prophets, don't go looking around. That does not match with the earlier part where he says, let them which, when you see these things, those which be in Judea, get up and flee. Take a flight, go in the mountains, hide, going to come some terrible things, and he describes them a period of great tribulation. Now, that is a sign of the end of the world as they know it, but it's not a sign of the rapture. He's made that clear. For as the lightning cometh out of the east and shineth unto the west, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. Wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. That's how you're going to locate the tribulation, is it's going to be full of eagles eating the flesh. Now, he's going to go back to the chronology now, after the tribulation. So he finished with the tribulation up here in verse 22, and then he gave us this caution in 23 through 28 and mentioned that the second coming will come first. Won't be any signs for it. And then he goes back to 29 and 30 to the chronology. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, the moon shall not give her light, the stars shall fall from heaven, the powers of heaven shall be shaken, and then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn when they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Here it's not like the lightning. Here he comes. Here there are the sign of his coming is in the sky. And by the way, I think it's going to take 45 days. We won't go into that here. For the second coming, for him to go all around the world and appear to all the different people. Son of Man in heaven, then shall all the tribes of earth mourn when they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. In other words, this is going to take enough time when they see him coming in the clouds, at the speed of the moving of the clouds. When they see him coming like that, they're going to have time to mourn. They're going to have time to be very grieved. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. So he's made a difference here between what happens during the tribulation and at the end of it, and what happens before the tribulation with this rapture of the church. Now, if this were the only passage, no, I couldn't arrive at a rapture and then a second coming 7 years later, if this was the only passage. But I'm just giving you the biblical explanation, considering all the other passages, for this particular chapter. At least that's the way I see it. If you see it different, let me know. Write me a note. Give me a good reason. Don't just blabber. Give me some biblical text and show me. Now learn a parable of the fig tree. So this is a lesson to be gleaned. When his branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, ye know that summer is nigh. So likewise, when ye shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the door. So this is not the rapture, because they got signs. They begin to see these things. Verily I say unto you, this generation that sees these signs shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. So in other words, he says, when the signs start happening, like the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, and the sun and the moon darkened and not giving, so forth, so forth. And the other places he gives many more signs in the book of Revelation. And you see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. Verily I say to you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. So all of those many, many years of famine and war and pestilence, that's not part of it, because it's just one generation in which these final signs take place. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. Now, in reference to their question as to when, he's going back again. And this is not part of the chronology. He's finished the chronology. It's done. He goes back. But of the day and hour knoweth no man. So this is directly to the disciples. Know not the angels in heaven, but my Father only. So they will know when the second coming after the tribulation is taking place, because of all the signs. But the day and hour knoweth no man, not the angels of heaven. But as the days of Noah, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days before the flood, they were eating, drinking, marrying, giving in marriage, and knew not until the flood came and took them away, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. You see the contrast here between total shock and surprise, no signs, no indication, just eating, drinking, marrying, living a happy, cheerful, ongoing life, and pow, there it is. Second coming takes place. So shall the coming of the Son of Man. Then shall two be in the field, the one shall be taken, the other left, raptured. Two women shall be ground in the field, the one shall be taken, the other left, raptured. Watch therefore, for ye know not what the hour your Lord doth come. But know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched and not suffered his house to be broken into. In other words, you will not have a sign for the rapture of the church. It won't happen. It's imminent. We believe in the imminent return of Christ. Therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as you think not, the Son of Man cometh. Now, okay, we finally have a sign. Finally have a sign of the rapture of the church. What is it? An hour when you think not. So when people get to thinking there's not going to be a rapture, oh, I've got a sign now. Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his Lord hath made ruler over the household to give them meat in due season? Blessed is that servant whom his Lord when he cometh shall find so doing. For I say unto you that ye shall make him ruler over all his goods. But if that evil servant shall say in his heart, my Lord delayeth his coming, shall begin to smite his fellow servants, eat and drink and be drunken, the Lord of his servant shall come in a day when he looketh not for him, in an hour when he's not aware of. Now that was a little sermonette Jesus gave them at the end of all this, telling them, don't wax cold. don't reach a place to where you say it's been a long time. It says that later in the New Testament, Paul said, they shall say, where is the sign of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were. And so that's where we're getting now. So much of the church is rejecting biblical truth and adopting psychology and preaching little false miracles and false signs and false Christ, actually. Okay, that's what I think. And by the way, you know where I got that? I got that out of this book I wrote. This is a book on the 8 kingdoms. And it goes in, got those passages in here, and deals with all these things. It's easy to read. It's broken down into graphs and charts, so you have parallel passages through the scriptures showing you in great detail. Actually, I examined it several times different ways. You see how that graphed it out? So that's, I put more, it took me 30 years or so to write this book. And so you might want to get that from No Greater Joy Ministries. I don't make anything off of it. Okay, if you like this, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. There it is.